With wireless deals, you can't always trust everything you hear. So when we tell you that at US Cellular you can choose from any unlimited default plan and get $700 off any phone with no hidden requirements, you're probably thinking, yeah, right. But that actually is right. Because at US Cellular, you actually can trust everything you hear. Limited time offer. Terms and conditions apply. Visit uscellular.com for details.
US Cellular is America's locally grown wireless. Visit Cellular Advantage, a US Cellular authorized agent located on 918 South Locust Street in Glenwood.
Joining me today is casting director extraordinaire Panchami Ghavri. After casting for dozens of feature films like Gehraiyan, Kapoor and Sons, Wake Up Sid and more, she has recently started casting for short films and web shows as well. She's done Netflix's Mismatched and of course the latest one being Class. Today we'll get into the real deal behind what happens on the other side of the audition table and what exactly casting directors are looking for. Welcome to the pod, Panchami.
Thank you.
Right out the gate. Casting. How did you think you wanted to get into casting? What inspired you to get into this field?
So to be very honest, it was not like some sort of plan that I had made. I was very young. I was only 18. I was still completing my college, whatever, my first year I was in. And I kind of jumped on to assisting on a film called Wake Up Sid. I was an AD on the film. And I knew I wanted to work at the movies, but I didn't quite know what I wanted to do at the movies. So I jumped on as an assistant director and I was put on to casting. So usually it's like every AD will have one department that they are kind of given on to. And if you're someone that's new and you're starting out, you'll be given on to something that you can kind of get around, easily. It won't be like a very complex job, like whatever, like let's say making a schedule is much more complex. So I was given on to casting and there was a casting director on the project, which was Nandini Shrikant. So I worked under her as an assistant and that was my first stint. And I quite loved it from the time that I started doing it because it actually involves large amount of people skills and I'm a people's person. So it kind of came very organically to me assisting her and I just sort of jumped into it super early. I was very young. So I think my mind was like impressionable and I kind of just went with it and I really enjoyed doing it at the time. I didn't choose it as a career then. It was my first job. So after that I studied abroad. I went to New York to study and then I came back and I assisted another casting director, Ador Mukherjee. I did that for a bit and then I felt like, okay, now I can do this on my own. That's sort of my story with casting.
It's such a nice simple story though. It's like you found something, you realized you really love it.
Yeah.
And as an outsider, can I just say, when you think of casting, it's so like intimidating in my mind because I'll admit that when I did like a few modeling assignments when I was in college, I did some of those Aram Nagar auditions and they would make you hold a slate and show the camera your profiles. Has much changed?
Much has changed, my friend. Yeah, a lot has changed in the casting world. Honestly, from the time that I started to even now, we can see a huge shift in casting overall. Even that's the kind of shift that I've consciously tried to bring with my team as well. So we don't do any of that anymore. We don't hold slates and we don't do profiles. Other than if you're working on advertising, in web and film, that doesn't really facilitate. At that time, we were not as digital as a department. Today, we are far more digital. We don't need someone to hold a slate to give their name, age, height, because we can kind of punch in these details on an Excel sheet and we won't need them to stand with a board. I feel like actors would experience a certain amount of stress it felt a bit stressful to hold this board, like you were being objectified a bit. That sort of moved forward. We don't do that anymore. Even with something as simple as portfolio pictures, to be really honest, as a casting director who's working today in 2023, I don't care about portfolio pictures. I care about people sending in nice, natural images, even if it's against a white wall from a nice, a phone that can give you not pixelated images. That's more than enough. That's no longer a prerequisite to have portfolio pictures.
That must be so comforting, especially for someone that comes from the outside to hear, because, when you're looking at the film industry, leaving aside all of the hundreds of rumors that are probably incorrect in general, it can be a very daunting process.
And expensive. It's sad. It's a fat amount of money that you have to draw out from your pocket to to rent a studio, to get someone to style you, then get a photographer that's going to charge you a lot of money. Honestly, you don't need that. As an actor, that today, for me, you don't need to do any of that to be able to get a foot in the door at a casting director's office. And I mean, I'd love to speak on behalf of my contemporaries as well. I don't think that that's not a deal breaker of any sort anymore.
What is a deal breaker?
Deal breaker is definitely if you decide to roll into this profession without having to remove any time to actually learn it. That's a deal breaker for me. It's like you couldn't wake up in the morning and learn how to speak a new language to be like, today I'm going to be Spanish. That's not going to happen. You have to learn how to speak Spanish and then you'll be able to do it. So it's like any other job that you decide that you want to do, you have to learn it. No one wakes up in the morning and is an actor. You have to train how to be one. So learning acting and going to an acting school are two different things, in the sense that there are also all kinds of people in India, one that are blessed enough to be able to afford going to a acting school, and then there are some who can't. But I don't mean that everyone needs to go to a formal school to learn it, but one needs to learn it for sure, which means that there are several different ways of learning how to act. Either you can get really deep into reading a lot of books about acting, so you understand a little bit of technique, or you can try and do with some friend of yours who's also enthusiastic about acting. You both can start doing some scene work together, or try to see what used to work, what is working today with films like Kapoor and Sons, Gehraiyaan. There's even like Andhadhun, Family Man. You can see that there is a new era of acting that's come in.
I love that you've given so many tips, especially because if we have any aspiring actors listening right now, I feel like there's a lot of takeaway for them. Is that something that you particularly find fulfilling? Because before we started recording, when I told you I had Chintan on the pod over here, you got so like happy for him and excited for him, and that's something that I always appreciate, you know, when you are supporting new talent that's out there. Is that a big takeaway for you from your job?
I mean, I think my job in itself is super fulfilling, right? Because what is my job? I'm helping actors make their dream come true. It's super, super gratifying. And also I feel even when Class was releasing, I was so nervous to see. I was hoping like a little mama if that they all had performed the way that I was expecting. And then obviously when I watched it, I was so proud because every single person in that show has shown up and done their job. And I couldn't say that one could be another, you know, even though I don't know if they told you when you did this podcast, that a lot of them tested for multiple parts.
They mentioned.
Yeah, a lot of them tested, even Chintan, for instance, tested for multiple parts. So we were kind of trying to figure it out, like who could fit where. And today when I see them on screen, I'm like, they all are literally perfectly cast for their parts, because I love the way that they all are so different from each other. They're all so eclectically different looking, which is also exciting. And then they come from different worlds, which you can see in their camaraderie together. If you sit with them off camera, you know that they've accepted each other from the different worlds that they come from, and they are like a super, super tight crew. So when you hang out with them, you'll get a sense that, oh, these guys have kind of turned into a bit of a family, but they were creating something in which they were not playing that. It excites me a lot to see any of the cast members that I've put together in a show, when they're doing well, when their work is appreciated. It's like a little victory for me.
But then do you see the final project only once, like for example, in the case of Class, did you see it only once it was out, or do you get like feedback from the directors, or do you handhold a little bit? What's your process like?
So I do get some like piche ka gossip.
Kya ki thoda sa help kar lo yahan
No. I mean, of course, the actors will call me and say if they're struggling with something on set, or I'll get a call from a director to say that this person is having a little bit of trouble coping up with something. So I do get a little bit of that information. Of course, I'm not on set, so I can't see it firsthand. I can be on set, but I don't really have a job as a casting director on set. So I find it really discomforting to hang around in a place where I don't have a job. So I'll always go to visit like once on every show that I do. Class was obviously like a proper lockdown shoot, so they were very tight with their crew. So I didn't get to visit that set. But I'll get an idea from other HODs who's working well, or even from the styling department whose clothes are coming together really nicely, and I'll get that. But like, of course, the real deal is only when the show releases. Also with the OTT platforms, there's rarely a full showing of all of the episodes, right? Which is usually they like to just release it once and for all. So you might see like once in a while have a cast and crew where they'll show you like 1 or 2 episodes, and then they want you to just like go and watch it on Netflix or on Amazon or whatever. So no, I got to see the whole deal with Class only once it released.
But what about before that? Can you tell me a little bit about your process? Because like as someone, like I said, who has done a little bit of auditioning in my college days, actually you were also someone I reached out to when I in case people who are listening don't know, I was in like one scene of something on Netflix in 2020 actually. I was on a lockdown set. And I remember calling you for advice and I was like, should I do this? Because there's so many content creators getting into this space now. And it is something that I kind of wanted for myself. I mean, if I ever did, I would be like, I believe in trying everything. I'm just one of those people. And you were so supportive and you were like, yes, do it. You're so familiar with the camera. And it was fun. It really was a fun shoot. So I know about like, let's say my side of it. And most of us know, okay, people go in for auditions, they get shortlisted. But how is it on your side of things? Because that's where the stressful part is. I'm guessing you have to go through.
Yeah, I mean, I find it very exciting. So usually I'm taking it from the top, like a beginner's guide to casting.
Yes.
So basically the way that it works is that I'll possibly be one of the first HODs that will be hired on a film. So when a film is greenlit or a show or series is greenlit, that means the director is on board and then either the platform or the production house has said, okay, we're making this film. I'll possibly be one amongst the first people that will be hired even before the first AD or any of the other HODs, because we need to first put a cast together, right? So typically I'll get to read something. Like in the case of a film, I'll get to read the script. In the case of a series, usually a script, the screenplay is work in progress. So we'll get something called a beat sheet, which is like what happens in every episode, and then a synopsis or a look and feel for me to kind of get a sense on what kind of series are we making, what is the look and feel, how stylized is it, how desi is it, either or. And then the minute I read and I get like a character list, I will now start. I mean, this too happens to me when I'm already reading. Like my brain is already activated on who I think will fit in which part. So what typically my team will do is that we will create for the, let's say 4 or 5 main characters, we'll create a PPT. Now this PPT can be a mix. It can be a bunch of known people or established actors. So it could be someone as big as like even a Tabu or a Shefali Shah or a Vijay Varma or a KK Menon. These people can be on our PPT depending on if I think it would be exciting to see them in this part. And then we will go and do a little bit of a jamming session with the director, which is when we show them the PPT and then we ask them of what they're thinking and give a little bit of inputs of why we thought of certain people also, or why I think that this person would be an interesting cast. So sometimes that jamming process is super fun because the director may have never thought of someone that we are able to bring to them, also may not know of someone if they are kind of gaining a lot of clout in the OTT world, but the director has not seen as much of their work. So then we kind of do this jamming session and put down like a bunch of names. Now depending on their seniority, either we audition them if they're not as senior. Of course, if they're senior in the names that I took, which is Shefali Shah, Tabu, Vijay Varma, or even a KK Menon or many more like that, then we don't do an audition process. We basically will do a thing where I'll pick up the phone on the actor, I'll have a chat with them, tell them a little bit about the world, who's producing it, if there are any names that are already attached on the film, because that always helps for the actor to get a sense of, what kind of project are we putting together? Are we focusing on like certain level of actors? What's kind of going on? And then we just set up a meeting with the director. This is like the non-audition process. And then if there's an audition process, then it's exactly what you said, which is that we shortlist a bunch of names, we call them into the studio, and then we give them a scene or two, and then we record the scene together. Then again, depending on the director's schedule, either we watch tests together, or I send tests in and the director will give me his or her feedback on whoever they liked.
Is there ever a filter you keep in mind while selecting people? I was reading this interview the other day, and on this particular day I was reading quite a few. I think it was Osham's interview actually. If it's his interview that's coming to my mind right now, he mentioned, somebody asked him about what is your opinion on casting actual, gay people in a gay character. And I really liked the response. So I'm feeling really bad that I'm not 100% sure that this was his interview, but I'm 99% sure it was his. And the response was really nice. He said that, if you're casting a soldier, you're not going to go.
You read the Dirty Magazine interview.
There you go. Yeah. Thank you. And I was like, I read so many interviews on that day. I can't remember.
And it was awesome.
It was, wasn't it? And I loved that response because that's a conversation when it comes to casting that has a very polarized opinion,
Yes,
right? Where
it
you're
does.
like, okay, if it's a gay character, let's try to cast someone who's gay. I remember having this conversation with one of my managers back in the day when Gully Boy had come
Yeah.
out. And as a Muslim, I have not really grown up seeing what was her name? Safina. Safinas is main characters. It's always been Poojas and Priyas. And my manager at the time was saying, oh, I never really thought about it. And I said, yeah, but as a Muslim,
Yeah, you would think about it.
there's
yeah.
always an angle. You're either Pakistani or you're a terrorist. There's some
That's interesting.
stereotype attached to when it's a
Yeah.
Muslim lead. And in Gully Boy, there
Yeah.
was nothing.
There was
It was
nothing.
just a story. And then when I read this interview, that came back to me, that conversation came back to me, and I loved the response. And I said, now that's awesome. As long
Yeah.
as you're portraying, a certain minority.
Correct.
But where are you on this? Do you feel like casting for certain minorities when you're going through a selection, hey, it would be nice to have A, B, or C's included?
Yes, I do feel like that. I have been on that. In fact, I very actively try to sometimes tell my directors that it would be nice to have some representation in the film, and we don't have to talk about it, or we don't have to make a point about it, but it'd be nice to be able to kind of open doors. I don't know what that's going to get them, but we did do that in Gheraiya. Actually, there was no point to be made, but in our own way we wanted to get representation from all kinds of people, and
normalize it.
we just normalize it, and and why not just open doors for people that may have thought that they won't be able to be a part of this world, to be like, okay, actually we're very happy for you to be a part of this world. So we did that. We did a whole drill where we went out of our way to just put it out there. For instance, in the LGBTQI community, where we were like, we're looking for people from this community to be a part of our film, and we made a whole note about the fact that we're not putting anything in boxes. We just want them to have that representation in the film. And we never even this is probably the first time that we're speaking about it. But it's an important conversation, because I agree with Oshim though, because it is true that during class, we were very neutral. We put it out to people who were out there, gay or queer, and then we also put it out to people that were straight. So we were open-minded enough to be able to take whoever was right for the part, which is also, it's the right attitude to go in with it, right? Which is that you're not trying to go out of your way to
do something specific.
Yeah, so basically it was the idea, even in Oshim's project in class, was that we're going to put this opportunity out, and then the best will find it. But we did consciously put it out to all kinds of people with all kinds of preferences, and we were open to, we want to just treat it as good acting. That's it.
But
And
that in itself is also
it
inclusive.
is it is inclusive, and it is progressive, and the idea is to just be that.
To be welcoming to all.
Yes,
I mean, at the end of the day, that's all we're all hoping we get
Yes.
to a place of. But have you ever faced any backlash or any conflict? Have you ever had a producer who's been like, hey, okay, but has there been conflict?
No, I mean, of course, I've had my advertising words that, I mean, I'm obviously not taking any names, but
Yeah.
in my advertising life, there was a lot of the body shaming. I've faced a lot of that in terms of requirements. And this seems to be a very common thing in India, that people are just used to, so they don't want to do anything to change that. But with who's who of the brands to be fair, thin, all of those awful words, which me and my team are so conscious about. We hate. Actually, maybe that's part of the reason I don't do too much advertising. No, I'm kidding. But I think creatively, I am more inclined towards the movies and web. I do a fair amount of advertising work, but it's mostly with directors that I get along well with, and because I don't want to come across this sort of situation, and I'm really very open about that. It's not anything hidden. As a casting director, I don't actually identify working with people that endorse that kind of, even if it's money making or it's advertising, that kind of advertising doesn't resonate with me as a person. So I'm very happy being left out of that. But there's a lot of that in the industry. Still, I do think that we've moved a little bit forward, but we still have a long way to go.
Do you feel like those stereotype words have literally just been the same? Fair, thin, tall, long hair, are those
Plump?
still...
Yeah,
Plump? They
use
want
that.
plump, but they don't...
I don't know. I guess when you want someone plus size, you won't say that. You'll say chubby, you'll say plump, you'll say awful words like that. Or even North Indian, which is a code word for fair.
Oh dear. I didn't
Yeah,
know
there's
that.
so many of those.
Oh, so like because South Indian means deep, so North Indian must be fair. Is that what they mean?
It's all crazy. There's a lot of that.
Oh my god.
Yeah, so you have to
As
like...
if North Indians can't be deep and South Indians
No,
can't
that's
be
a complete
fair.
misconception. But it's a very India sort of like thinking, which we are obviously trying to push those boundaries, and we'll never have any of that on our page. We are so conscious about the posts that we put up. Even if we have a specific requirement, I would rather that my team and me, we go over 100 more emails and fine tune that than to set that out as just put that out in the world on a post. You have to be mindful about what you say and you never know how that can be a trigger to someone, so you have to be very mindful of that. And I think that takes a full on conscious effort. Like every post from PGC will be run and to me before it goes up on. And if we ever, because of course we're human, somewhere we may have made a mistake, we like immediately take the post down and like put up a new one, because we are conscious of the words that we put out there.
No, that's awesome. I feel like we're all human and we're always learning and growing. But just the fact that it's part of the ethos of the way your company operates in itself is so good. Because, like, for example, I feel you were also amongst the first movers in the casting space to, let's say, look at content creators.
Yeah.
Or for that matter, like taking a stand, like the way you're mentioning, you've, made a conscious effort. Your whole company has made an effort towards. But one of the very 90s conversations around casting has been related to the casting couch words, which we've all learned and kind of, and I'll admit that a lot of people also growing up in, I would say, our generation, like I feel would have wanted to be actors but wouldn't say it because there was this underlying thing ke usko to actor banna hai.
Yeah, you're right.
And even subconsciously, if I went through a phase where I wanted to, or even I did my BMM, and I had a lot of friends who were auditioning left, right and center, some of whom have gone on to become fantastic actors today, who are doing some great work. But there was always this underlying fear for your friends that, oh my god, I hope you don't go through that. How has that, have you ever in the industry seen a peer who's been like, okay, you know what, I want to stay away from this person because this seems dodge?
I definitely think it was very much there, and I think that today after the Me Too campaign, things have gotten a little bit better, because I guess it's created a certain amount of fear, which is good, which is great. And I'm happy about that, because people should be fearful about, creating an unsafe environment and then taking advantage of that in the name of like giving an opportunity, which I'm entirely against. I think that it was very real in Bollywood. There's no doubt about that. I don't know how much of it was able to see the light of day in courts and stuff, which sadly I don't think too much of it did. But I think it's a reality. There are people in power that misuse the power. But I think today we are in a different sort of time where, and I'm glad that the Me Too campaign happened, because today it's created a little bit of a voice for people that are going through anything which is incorrect. And today we've even on like all of the film sets, even Netflix as a company or Amazon, they all have like a sexual harassment law. It's there in all of the contracts. It's there on all of my casting contracts. So it's sort of, at least it's put forward that this is an issue, or this is a no harassment zone. So even on set now, there'll always be, you will be told that there's a producer that you can go and talk to, tell if someone is making you uncomfortable.
Like in HR for set?
Yes. And Netflix also does they make you do a little online program, which is again sexual harassment with your teammates. So you have to do it. It's like protocol. So it's amazing. I mean, it's created some sort of shift in a legal way, which is good.
So that holds people accountable.
Which holds people accountable. So if it happens under the watch, there's always someone to go to. They'll do a little like a pre-going on set, little what you call like a masterclass of sorts. Sometimes with the whole AD team and stuff. So I think that it's being taken seriously now. Maybe it wasn't earlier. I've definitely come across actors that have had all sorts of funky experiences. Not all of it has to be that. I think it's more like sexism here and there, like stuff like that, which anyway nobody should have to go through. But yeah, I think that is definitely changed. I do think that earlier in Bollywood in like 80s and 90s, so it was relevant in a very, very big way. So I'm glad that today we have like what women are also standing up and speaking a lot more than they used to. They've come into their own, they know what their rights are. I think earlier there was, like you said, this like a little bit of like, which I've never really understood, that looking down upon wanting to become an actor, which is someone who doesn't know what it takes to be one is the only one who would do that, because it's an incredibly hard profession to pick. It has so much rejection. It can be so difficult. Nervous breakdowns, depression, anxiety, so common with actors, because it's just a difficult field. It also requires for you to be on set in all kind of odd hours, or your sleep cycles are screwed, so there's all of that. So I think that if you are a part of the industry, after doing all of that, it has to be because you really love what you're doing. And in no way should it, as a career, this is for everyone to hear all over the world, that it should be looked down upon. Every career that, or every job that you choose, if you like it, you love it, it should not be something that should be looked down upon. For what reason? Only because it has like glamour and fame and all of those things. It doesn't mean that it doesn't have hard work. It has a lot of hard. Actors work really hard. In fact, I go on set and I'm like, how do actors do it? Because like it requires so much patience, and I feel like sometimes the wait, even like on set between takes, it can be exhausting. So even getting through like a 8-10 hour shoot is not easy at all. So I feel like that's a very, very dated thought. To look down upon something that you don't understand is just unfair.
I feel like a lot of that comes from the idea of just looking at any glamorous life. Like when you look at models, actors, even influencers these days, there is a set of people online that love to point out or think and say.
Because they think it's easy.
Easy, exactly. And because they think that you're sitting there glamming and that's that. But the actual work that happens, can really drain it.
Influencers is also very tough. Like I feel like once I may have gone for a holiday and like someone was kind enough to give me like, basically I saw some clothes and then I realized that there is so much work to be done. I'm on a holiday. I just want to chill. I don't want to take content pieces. But then you realize that actually that's a part of the job, which is that you can be out on a holiday or it's your downtime, but you still have to like record content and you have to make sure you get it right. You have to make sure that the sound is okay. The clothes are looking good. It's super tough. I mean, I think that what you guys do is like, it's impeccable because of the effort that you put in.
No, thank you, especially because I don't think people tell us this enough. I feel like there is, like, while there is, I think, a growing community of people that understands that being a model, actor, influencer in today's day and age is, physically very tiring. And not to compare it with the regular 9 to 5, because every job is difficult in its own way, I feel. Right. Everything has its pros, cons, and challenges, perks, all of that. But these jobs are very heavy on footwork, literally speaking, and I feel like that's a little bit of an underrated factor because people only see the camera,
the reel.
They only see that's what I try to do with my vlogs, where I'm like, this is what's happening, this is what's really going on in my life while I'm putting on a smile and shooting for that campaign. This is the real deal on my life right now. But listen, since we're talking social media and influencers, I have this little segment on the pod. It's called Slide Into My DMs. Welcome to my personal favorite segment, Slide Into My DMs. This is where I take a peek into my guests' DMs. And yes, I'll be sharing mine too. In this no-holds-barred segment, we nosedive into our guests' inboxes, as well as messages from you to us from my Instagram. Buckle up for a potentially scandalous round of messages and some sweet ones too. Let's go! I think you must be getting some really interesting DMs.
I get WhatsApp DMs, everything.
Tell me more. I'm all yours. We're all yours.
No, to be honest, Slide Into My DM means I get a lot of... I mean, it's mainly just actors that are trying to reach out to like make a connect, obviously, because I'm human and I have a life outside of casting. So every time I leave my phone for like an hour, I get a minimum of like 20 to 30 unread messages. It's that hardcore.
How do they get your number?
It just happens. It's a casting. The thing is, I got to give it to actors, all of the actors out there. Their community is actually quite tight in the sense that which is sweet in its own way, but this doesn't mean that you should flood me. But it's sweet in its own way because they have these like several WhatsApp groups where they try to help each other out, which is really sweet at the core of it, because I think that even though they don't necessarily know each other, they're trying to sort of stand together to help each other out, to be like, okay, if I have someone's number, contact, and this would help you, then. So I think the intention with which they do it is very helpful and clean, and it's not at all to like really trouble or spam me. It's just that one may not realize how many more are doing it. So obviously, in the scheme of things, a lot of it gets missed out, and it's definitely not the most efficient way of getting in touch, because a lot of it is like in the middle of my regular day, and I'm not focusing on like forwards that I'm getting from actors. But yeah, I get all sorts of, ma'am, you are very charming and very beautiful, and all of those like sweet, like kind to me. But no, I've not got any.
Do
like,
they try to flirt with you? Like,
I mean, I guess in their own way of like trying to make a connect. I like, actually, to be honest,
they don't realize you're married.
Yeah, many of them don't realize, even though it's like glaring on my Instagram that I am. But I feel like because of the person that I am and the job that I do, and because I'm also a sensitive person myself, I actually empathize with actors more than I don't, because I feel like it takes like a very thick skin to choose this as a career, and it takes a lot of time to be able to find something. Sometimes you may be trying for a while and you don't get anywhere, and then you have to pick another career. And then in a place like India, there's so much pressure with like doing the conventional doctor, engineer type of jobs, that acting is so far from it. Like I had once or twice, I hosted these like workshops for a few hours every day that I stopped doing later. I'll tell you more about that. But I had a bunch of people that had come from like some from like Pune, Bangalore, all sorts of places, that had not told their parents that they were coming for the workshop. So part of the reason that I stopped doing it is because I felt an incredible amount of responsibility towards what I'm doing or what I'm teaching in these. And if I was not able to give it my 100%, I didn't actually want to do it, because it's like you're playing around with people's lives, their dreams. And some of them don't come from families that are supportive, like you said. When they come to you like looking for answers to where they should go from after this workshop, that can be like incredibly stressful.
That's a lot of weight on your
Yeah,
shoulders.
it's a lot of weight. So I was like, okay, if I decide to do this someday, I want to do it like fully, and I should not be, then I have to give my students the time that they deserve, because it's their dreams that you're basically, not playing with, but you're trying to get their dreams to get somewhere. So it can't be just like a couple of hours in a day, you just give some pieces of advice and then you detach from it and go back to your life. Like I feel like that would be unfair. So if I had to ever do the whole, like a lot of casting directors do, like coaching and training and workshops and stuff, I haven't gotten into it because I feel like if I do it, I want to do it right. Otherwise, I'd rather not do it.
And then there's also that inevitable, comparison. I call it the Indian N-word over here with the Nepo babies, as they say. Because like everyone who's trying so hard is because they genuinely don't have a connection, right, with this world. Yeah. And then you're grasping for straws to whatever you can. But that's why I'm here.
That's why, series like Class make me so happy, and even Mismatched for that matter. And whether or not, like, let's say the background of Prajakta, for instance, was that she was a content creator. At the end of the day, she walks in and she gives a good test. And the reason why she's constantly getting work is because she nails auditions. So I think that content creator or not, for me, it's much like we have a part, and now whoever can come and do the best job at this part. So whether you're a content creator or you're a fresher or you're a seasoned actor, that doesn't make... To me, I treat everyone super equally.
So the followers don't matter to you at all?
No, not to me. I don't know about like how it works with the digital platforms, because they are a corporate agency or a corporate space, but I'm a creative space. So for me, it doesn't matter at all who has how many followers. I don't even care if you don't have an Instagram profile. Yes, I can give the tip that it's good to have a Instagram open profile. I'm not telling or endorsing that actors should do this if that's not a part of their personality and if they're not comfortable with it. The only way that it helps helps us as casting directors is that we get to see like updated images.
Yeah.
Otherwise, sometimes the rotation images that come to us, because this portfolio thing hasn't still left the building, I hope it does soon, we end up getting pictures that are like taken 3 years ago. And then if you don't have an Instagram presence, then I don't quite know what you look like presently. Also, it's a free platform to like put forth your talent, so why not is what I tell actors. But again, to each their own. It's not a compulsion if you are not on Instagram or not on any social media profile. I just think that it's for actors that don't have an agency repping them, it's a great way to let people know what work you're doing. Even if you don't want to put personal stuff, you can just be like, put a poster of a show that you're coming in, or even if you're doing a bit part, just like write something in it. So people are a little bit looped in what you've been up to, how your career is kind of pushing forward.
It's also just a great way to become your own personality, even if it is online, right? Because at the end of the day, and I say this as again a spectator who's been a big Bollywood movie buff all my life, what at the end of the day a Nepa kid brings to the table is the ready audience that is familiar with the personality. If you can build that for yourself on social media, like a Prajakta has, or a Kusha has, or a Dolly has, that's fantastic. More power to you if you're able to convert that into a ready audience that will absorb.
Like, again, then if you're like a person who doesn't really like the attention, but you still like the craft, because there's all kinds of people in the world, and that's okay as well. I don't think that Instagram is the way that we are getting people to come in and audition. Yes, we might source some talent there, but that's not the deal breaker on how we're getting people to come in and test. Of course, people, when we put a post out, people are writing to us on an email personally, and we're picking people from there also. In fact, one of our films that's coming, Mr. and Mrs. Mahi, it's going to be, I think it's going to release at the end of this year. I think about 40% of the film has been casted via emails, which is
wow.
Which means that they never had any connect with us. We didn't have any connect with them. They literally just put in an application. We liked what they had to offer, and now they're in the film. So I think that myth of like, oh, casting directors never check emails, I don't think that's, I mean, it's not true for us, at least. We check emails.
I love that. Is there a particular exciting project that's coming out soon, or something that you can obviously talk about and share with us that we can kind of keep our eyes?
Yeah, we're doing a really fun film for Netflix, which is being directed by Homi Adajania. It's a very nice, big ensemble cast, probably one of the bigger ones that India has seen. And it's a whodunit murder mystery. It's a really, really fun script. So we are excited about that. That's going to come, I think, again at the end of the year.
You had me at murder mystery, like right there. So I want to end this episode on a really fun note. There's this little segment we do called Associate This.
Okay.
Think of it as the podcast version of a rapid fire segment, I guess.
Okay.
For lack of any other way of describing it. And I'm going to shoot some words at you.
Okay.
And I want to see what you have to say in response to them.
Okay. Does it have to be a sentence or like a
word, phrase, anything that I'm going to give you like 3 seconds to answer. Okay.
Wow.
Drum rolls, please. So it's time for our next segment, Associate This. A fast-paced word association game where my guests get no more than 10 seconds to respond. So get ready, get set, associate. I feel I should start with this one. Aram Nagar.
Often rejection.
Ranbir Kapoor.
Very good actor.
Gen Z.
People to watch out for.
Hollywood.
Very aspirational.
Nepotism.
Talent-based.
Aditya Chopra.
Very interesting. Recently, very, very flawed by him from The Romantics.
Yeah, I love that. Gehraiya.
Deep love for me.
Coffee.
I don't know why oat milk has come to my mind. Maybe because I'm like, I don't have.
It's okay. It's what the segment does. It brings out the randomness in our brain.
I was like, oat milk has come to my mind.
Casting couch.
Over. Should be over. Against. I have so many things to say about that.
Shah Rukh Khan.
Love. Like all sorts of bachpan ka pyar types.
I think for all of us.
Yeah, fully. Like
Listen,
childhood love.
You've been so fun on this podcast. Thank you for sharing so many tips, especially because I feel like there are definitely aspiring actors out there who are listening, who are understanding that it's not, you know how people online and just the rumors, they love to say that, Bollywood is this big bad beast ready to swallow them. I feel like you've busted a lot of myths for them today. And brought down the curtain.
Thank you.
Things actually can work.
Yes, thank you for having me. I think one of the reasons actually I love doing podcasts is because I feel like not too many people, the thing what happens with actors and me as a casting director is I don't have a personal connect with all of them. But this is a great way for me to connect with my actors, for them to let them know what I'm thinking and what kind of person I am, and how approachable we are trying to be as a company, and that they should just like hold on. It'll work out.
Well, those are perfect words to end this episode on. It'll work out.
Yeah, it'll work out. Just work hard.
Yeah, of course. Thank you. Thanks
Most
so
welcome.
much for coming on, Panchami.
Thank you so much.